Good morning, and what we're going to walk through now is a few PowerPoint slides. I'll go through them fairly quickly, touching on the highlights that are in the slides. I have made this slide deck available to Professional Advantage, so they can certainly share it with you, and you can look at it more in depth. But we'll walk through the slides and spend a few minutes there, and then after that, we're actually going to walk through a presentation of the e-procurement process. So again, what we're going to look at today is web-based e-procurement, and we'll go ahead and start walking through the slides here. So the e-procurement solutions that we offer within the workplace umbrella of products provide spend management and workflow automation solutions. What we're going to look at on the slides is a brief overview of Paramount and our history, market needs and pain points. Why should you be looking at web-based or automated procurement systems? What we offer with Workplace from a solution standpoint, how those can be deployed, as well as some features, and then finally we'll walk through and look at the demonstration. Paramount's been in business since 1995, so now for more than 18 years we've been doing spend management solutions. Those spend management solutions include e-procurement processes for requisitions, creation of purchase orders, receiving, invoice matching. We also have expense solution and time entry solutions as well that are a part of the workplace umbrella of products. Again, today we're going to cover the e-procurement and purchasing aspects, but just so you know, we do have other solutions that we offer, all with the ultimate goal of spend management with workflow processes throughout. And we've got more than 500 customers, more than 70,000 end users, and our deployments can be as small as 5 users or more than 3,000 users. Actually, our largest user has more than 4,000 users that are working with the workplace application. Now, from a spend management side, overall, with all the aspects of our solution, we're looking at your profitability and maximizing your cash flow. E-procurement is truly one of the areas that by implementing this type of solution, you can immediately impact your bottom line. And you're impacting the bottom line by decreasing Maverick spending. And Maverick spending is the asking for forgiveness rather than permission. You go out and buy it, and then you ask for reimbursement for it. So we're going to allow you to have the processes in place to make sure that you're only getting the goods that are authorized or the services that are authorized, and if you're getting them from the proper vendor at the lowest price that you can. Because you're spending so much with vendors, you're able to track that spending and possibly make better deals with vendors, and you're increasing the efficiencies of the process and of your procurement by managing the workflow as the requisitions and receipts and invoice matches flow through the process, so that you're only having to look at the exceptions and not every single transaction that has to go through. And if you implement a spend management or e-procurement solution, you can see that there are impacts that are provided here in a study that is done by the Aberdeen group, and just a couple of highlights here: significant savings on the cost of the requisition to order, significant time savings for the number of days that it takes to get a requisition to a purchase order, and then also the control of the Maverick spending. So you can see that easily with these types of numbers, you can have that impact on the bottom line very quickly and have a very quick return on investment. These next few slides, again, I won't read all of it through to you. I've already touched on some of the areas, but we're looking at the pain points that a CFO might experience with being able to control spending. A lot of the control does have to do with the approval processes and visibility to the transactions as they're going through. And because you have that visibility, again, you're able to have preferred vendors, and with those preferred vendors get the special pricing. From an efficiency standpoint, paper-based requisitions, Microsoft Excel-based requisitions obviously require multiple data entry points. You risk duplicate entry, you risk losing or deleting the transactions, or having them sit on somebody's desk or sit in somebody's email for too long, and then you lose any benefits that you might have from a requisition process. We do have an invoice automation solution. Now, invoice automation is a part of the procurement process, but it can also be a separate solution that we offer as well. What you're doing with an invoice automation solution is you're, one, either matching the invoices to previous purchases. So you're making sure that what you are getting and what you are paying was on a previous purchase order and has been properly received. You've got approval processes with the invoice matching as well to make sure that they're able to be seen by the appropriate people before that final transaction can be entered in your back office system and then be able to pay the vendor. You've also got non-PO invoices, which are invoices where you need to pay a vendor, but you don't have a PO associated with it. You still want the entry point over the web, and you also want the approval processes. And both of those are, again, solutions that can run independent of each other or as a part of the workplace umbrella to automate your invoice process and what and how you're going to pay the vendors with the approval workflow throughout. Now, again, I've got a quick slide here that'll look at the expense pain points. Again, expenses are designed to allow you to reimburse an employee based upon what expenses they've incurred. We won't look at that today in detail, but I do have it on a slide here just so you can see it and be aware that that is a solution that we offer. Again, all of these solutions are under the workplace umbrella of products, so if you are using Requisition, then the expense can just be an additional module that works along with that. All right, so we're going to build a couple of functionality components of the workplace application here. We've been talking about, and what we're going to look at today is the procurement section. It's requisitioning to create POs. It's receiving and invoice automation all over the web by users that you've allowed to access the product, and there's workflow throughout. We also offer inventory management solutions with our product as well, and we can integrate to your current back office inventory solutions. So again, the procurement process that we're going to look at can have a couple of different flavors depending upon your needs and your requirements, but we do also offer the web-based inventory management as a part of the requisition, or excuse me, procurement solution as well. We do also have our own capital project component that's available. So as you enter requisitions, expenses, or time, then you are able to tie or link those to capital projects and track them against budgets and report against the spend that you have there. Again, common theme throughout these clicks that I'm doing here are procurement. It's part of your purchasing process. It's part of the controls that you have in place, and we have additional functionality that you can add in order to allow the user to have, again, in this example, either inventory management or capital project solutions. We also offer timesheet entry. Our timesheet entry can be done to several different project applications that are out there. And again, we do the expense solutions that also have a travel component with them so that you can get pre-approval of the travel prior to it occurring. So those are some of the different common implementations of our solutions that we offer. Again, workflow throughout the process, no matter which one you're looking at. From a deployment standpoint, you can be deployed on-premise or in-house, meaning that our product will reside on your web server, and then we'll have integration to your back office system. It can also be hosted by a third party, so if you host the solution in that manner, then obviously it's still web-based. The users are still accessing it via their browser, but it's a third party that's hosting it. And we also offer cloud and software as a service offerings as well. Again, depending upon your needs and your requirements, we are very flexible in how the solution can be deployed because it is 100% web-based. We offer mobile apps that will work on both the smartphone and tablet. And again, if you're using our inventory management solution, there are also handheld scanners that are available as well. Workplace is a highly configurable solution, and we'll walk through some examples of that here in just a few minutes to see what can be available to a user. It's also very customizable in regards to the approval routing processes that you have. We support Safari, Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. We've got multi-currency integrations, multi-language support. You can have attachments and comments throughout the process. You can configure the business rules so that a user can only have access to what you want them to access to, and whatever they are able to view and enter will be approved before those final transactions occur. And you're always able to audit and see a status of where your transactions are via easy to view and easy to use dashboards. There's multi-company and intercompany functionality as a part of the solution as well. Today we're going to focus on the procurement process, and a key part of the procurement process is requisitions. Requisitions can be entered in many different ways: internal catalogs, external catalogs via punch-out. You can control that Maverick spending via vendor contracts to make sure that you're getting the best price from the best vendor, and we also have requests for quote components as well, so that you can send requisitions out and ask vendors to bid on them prior to them creating a PO. And we offer portals. The portals enhance the RFQ process as well as allow vendor PO and invoice submission, so you allow some self-service functionalities to your vendors. The vendor portal is a hosted or software as a service application that we provide, but again, it links in and works with the other solutions that we're talking about. And we've already looked at or briefly mentioned the invoice automation and the purchasing processes that we have. Again, from a capital project budget standpoint, you've got 3 different levels that you can use as a part of that project with extensive reporting capabilities and budget tracking. Our time entry is available over the web with interfaces to many different ERP and project systems, and our expense solution allows you to enter travel requests, and there's a mobile app that allows you to capture your expenses, capture the receipts of those expenses, and then ultimately create your expenses from what has been selected and entered there. All right, so the products that we're going to look at and talk about today have integration to Microsoft Dynamics GP and also Microsoft Dynamics AX. I'm going to keep the presentation that we do today at a high level and not drill down necessarily on specific requirements for either one of those. 90% of what we're going to look at today is applicable across the board to both of those platforms, and we can always give you more information or more details about those as well. But I've got a quick slide that will build out that will show you what we do with Microsoft Dynamics GP. On the left-hand side, I've mentioned the different solutions that we have. We also leverage any current GP interfaces that you might have, such as analytical accounting or encumbrance management, and we also have integrations to third parties that might work with GP as well. If you were to look at this same slide for an AX solution, on the left-hand side, the solutions would be very similar, and then the interfaces might be slightly different, again, simply because it's a different back office or ERP system, but this will give you an over idea of how we integrate and link to those solutions, and then what we attempt to leverage, meaning what you have installed and implemented in your back office can be extended out to the web so that it can be a part of the procurement process and allow you to, again, have spend management solutions available there. So here's a couple of points that we've already talked about as far as the AX NRE procurement solution. We'll look at the punch-out process, and I'll talk more about that later once we get into the demo, and also the multi-company functionality that we offer with the solutions as well is a key part of that integration. And with that, I'll get out of the PowerPoint here, and we'll spend the next 30 minutes or so walking through an actual demonstration, and then we'll leave time at the end for questions and answers. So let me end my slideshow, and we'll get started with the presentation here. All right, so the Workplace is a web-based application. All of the users that log in do so via their browser. Again, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. There's my address bar and URL up the upper right-hand side, or upper the top left-hand side of the screen. I'll enter my username and password, and I'm using SQL Server authentication on my image here. We also support NT authentication via Active Directory for single sign-on purposes. So if you're using NT authentication in your environment, that is supported for logging in as well. And once the information's been entered, click on Login, and you will now log in to the Workplace application. When you log in the Workplace, you start off on your home page. The home page can have any announcements that you've allowed the user to view or need to view. You'll have your outstanding transactions, which will include transactions for all of the different areas of functionality that you have access to as a user. And you have the ability to shop internal catalogs and external catalogs via punch-out. So as soon as you log into the application, you've got a view to your outstanding transactions, and you've got the ability to immediately begin shopping and entering items on a requisition. Over here on the left-hand side are the functions that this user has been allowed to access, and you can see that Foy, which is the user we're logged in as, has the ability to requisition and also has the ability to receive. We'll start with the requisition process, and when I click on requisition, now the transactions are individual to requisitioning, and the information over here on the right-hand side also applies to requisitioning. These outstanding transactions are transactions that have at least one line on them that has not been fully processed. And when that's the case, you will see the requisition here. You'll see a name of the requisition, a status of the requisition. If different lines have different statuses, you'll see where those are in the process. If they're waiting for approval, you'll see who they're waiting for approval from. And if you needed more information or more details on any of these requisitions, click on them, open them up, and there is additional details for each of the lines that's available to the user. Up here on the upper right-hand side, you've got your Find Requisition query. That allows you to go back in and find any and all requisitions that you have access to as a user. So that would certainly be your active or outstanding requisitions that are already showing up here. It would be your historical requisitions that have been fully processed, and it would be any other requisitions that you're allowed to view as well. As an example, if you're a department manager and you have the ability to access and view the requisition for other members of your department, then you'd be able to use this query here to look up and find those. So as a user, you always have the ability to go back in and see where your requisitions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them as they go through the different steps of the process. I'm going to click on Requisition Entry, and this is the Requisition Entry window for Foy as a user. So these are the fields that we've chosen to make available to this user to be able to view and enter information into. These are not all of the fields that are available. There's other fields like shipping method and payment terms that I have hidden from this particular user. And if I still have fields here on the screen that do not apply in your environment, maybe the user does not know the information, you don't want them to see the information, or they just typically do not enter the information, then you can hide these fields as well. If you hide fields, they are removed from the screen. The user cannot see them and will not even know that they're there. You can also make fields read-only. An example of a read-only field is ship to. You can view the information, but you cannot access it or change it. You could default values into fields, so there's a constant value for a user that they use all of the time or most of the time. Default that in, and the field's already populated with that information. You've got required fields up here towards the top of the screen. You see that item description and quantity have a red asterisk next to them. That indicates required field, meaning you must enter information into those fields before you can successfully submit the requisition. Item description and quantity are actually the minimum required fields. So if all you knew as a user was a description of what you wanted and the quantity, that would be all that you would need to enter. Somebody else along the line to provide the additional information and the additional details before the purchase order could be created. And if you want to make other fields required, you can. And any fields that you make required will have an asterisk next to them, just like these do. And again, you must enter information into those fields before you can successfully submit the requisition. There's also quite a few fields on the screen that have magnifying glasses next to them. If you click on the magnifying glass to the right of the field, or if you double-click in the field to the left of the magnifying glass, you'll do a lookup to another source of information and be able to use that information when you come in to fill out the requisition. So fields like item and unit of measure, site ID, vendor, GL account, ship to, those would typically be pulled from your back office financial or ERP system, GP or AX in this example. Again, items could be pulled from our workplace inventory, but there would be lookups to that information that allow you to use that information when you come in to fill out the requisitions. Along with those lookups, you can also restrict and control the information that's available as well. So you can limit a user to only have access to certain items or vendors or GL accounts. That way they cannot accidentally make a selection that you don't want them to be making, and they also do not need to search through unnecessary information to find what it is that they're looking for. And all those things that we just talked about, the ability to hide fields and make fields read-only, default values into fields, make fields required, as well as the restrictions on the lookups or zooms, are all by user. So individual users, depending upon who they are, what they do, or where they work within an organization, can have different access and different views to information when they come in to enter their requisitions. And that's a little bit about how you enter information on a requisition. In a moment, we will start the process of putting information onto these fields based upon what we're allowed access to. But first off, real quick, there's a type of requisition. I mentioned check request during the PowerPoint. The check request is for a non-PO invoice that you need to request payment for. We do have inventory replenishment requisitions that will replenish inventory based upon minimums and maximums and order up to levels. And we also have vendor contracts, which allow you to enforce pricing or track spending with vendors, and you can create a requisition that will ultimately create a vendor contract once it's been approved. All of these look the same, pretty much. There might be some different fields that are needed, but as I walk through our process, you'll have an understanding of those. It's the end result that's different. The end result of a check request is a transaction that can be paid. The end result of a inventory replenishment and a requisition is a PO, and the end result of a vendor contract is a vendor contract. So we're going to step back out here now, and we're going to create some items. We're going to create a requisition in several different ways by entering items, first off, from a catalog. So there are internal catalogs. Internal catalogs are ones that you set up and maintain on your own. You've either gotten a download from the vendor, or you've manually entered the information to create the catalog. Since it is your catalogs, you can have whatever items you want to have on there, by vendor, by department, by location. Pick an appropriate icon for that catalog. Click on that icon, and now you're going to see pictures and descriptions and pricing of items. You can click on items and see additional information and details. You can add items to your cart. You can continue shopping, adding more items to your cart from that same catalog or from other catalogs. When you're done shopping, click on Create Order Requisition, and you will now add those two lines from the requisition from that shopping cart of that internal catalog. You've also got external catalogs via a process called Punch-Out. Punch-Out is an open industry standard that allows you to leverage relationships that you have with your vendors and shop that vendor's site. So if I pick Office Depot here, which is a supplier of office supplies, we will now go out to that vendor's website. And in this instance, the vendor is maintaining your items, your catalogs, and your pricing for you as their customer. Use your menu options to go find what it is that you want. Search by keyword or by item number to find what you want. And then once you've found the items, indicate how many you'd like to request. Add those to your cart. Keep shopping. Add more items to your cart. When you're done shopping, check out. And that item or items is now pulled onto the requisition. There's your 5 dozen ballpoint stick pins from Office Depot. That order is not complete yet. That order will not be complete until a purchase order is created. And when the purchase order is created, it'll be sent electronically to the vendor. That will complete the transaction, and then they will ship you those items. You've also got shopping list. A shopping list is a predefined list or template of items that you can use. These lists can be set up by user, by department, or made available system-wide. They're typically for regularly requested items, like a monthly office supply order, a job, event, project, or even vendor that we request from regularly. If you have access to the list, you'll see it in the drop-down here. Click to select the list that you want to use, and here are the items that we typically request when we need something for a computer. So this time we want to get 2 of those, 1 keyboard, 1 LaserJet printer. Load those items onto the requisition. Shop other lists if needed and continue to add items to the requisition. But that's a quick and easy way, especially for regularly requested items, to be entered here. You can also import requisitions. You can import them in a CSV template format that we provide. You can duplicate requisitions, pull up a past requisition, duplicate it as new, make any changes, additions, or deletions, and submit that requisition. You can come into the body of the requisition. You can use the item field that does a lookup to an item master or possibly inventory that you can find and search through. And then once you find the items that you want, click on them to select it, and that'll pull in the item number, the item description, the unit of measure, the last price. There's also a primary vendor, a default GL account code that got pulled in. We enter our quantity. We've met our required fields, and that's a valid line on the requisition. And finally, if you cannot find the items in a catalog, in a shopping list, in an item master, you can always just simply type in what you need. And if you needed cleaning services and 2 hours of cleaning services, type that in. If that's all you know, that's all you need to enter. You've met the required fields, and that's a valid line on the requisition. And there are now 8 different lines on the requisition entered in several different ways. In your environment, you might use all of those methods. You might only use one of those methods, or different users might use different methods. But as long as you meet the required fields, it's a valid requisition that could be submitted. But there's other details that you can add as well. There's a requisition name. So if everything on this requisition was for the same purpose, monthly office supply order, job, event, project, or even a remodel of an office on the 3rd floor, then you could type that in. That identifies this requisition. At a glance, other users will know what that requisition is for. And it's also a field that you can look up and query on as well. In addition to the name of the requisition, there's also comments for each line. There's a vendor comment where I can say I need these as soon as possible. That vendor comment can be viewed by any of the other users who have access to the requisition. The vendor comment can also flow over to the line item entry detail on the purchase order and could print on the purchase order depending upon your setup and requirements. You've got internal comments. Internal comments are typically used for additional information, longer descriptions, special instructions, or even justification of why we're making the request. So you could say that these are for the office that is next to the elevator, just down from the stairwell, whatever else it is that you need to say to provide the additional information on the requisition. These are line item comments. If I move up here to my 1 gigahertz processor, you'll see that both the comment fields are blank, and you can have a totally different vendor comment as well as a totally different internal comment, and you'll see that icons appear next to the line. That's how you know that there's a comment is associated with them. You've got header comments where you can provide comments at a header level that apply to the entire requisition. You've got blank paper clips next to each line, a blank paper clip up here on the upper right-hand side. Click on the blank paper clip, browse the drives you have access to, select a Word document, PDF file, Excel spreadsheet, describe that, attach that to the requisition. You'll see the icon changes to a paperclip around a piece of paper. That's how you know that there's an attachment there. Other users can view that icon, view those attachments, and get the information provided. You've also got header attachments. Click, choose the appropriate one there, describe it, and that's now a part of this requisition as well. So on a requisition, again, you only need to enter the minimum information. No matter how much or how little you know, you can always add additional information and additional details at the line level, at the header level, with comments and attachments so that other users will know what you want, why you want it, when you want it, what you're going to use it for, and hopefully the process is not slowed down because they have a lot of questions. That's a part of the efficiencies that we mentioned during the PowerPoint slideshow, is single point of entry, enough information so that other users can keep this quickly moving. Now, as we've been entering these requisitions, you may have noticed that some lines have an item number and some lines do not. Some lines have a vendor but no GL account. Other lines have both a vendor and a GL account. That is because as you are entering these requisitions, the General tab, the Comments tab, and the GL segments apply to the individual line. So as a requester, the only thing that you need to be concerned about is what do I need? You don't have to worry about Are they all for the same vendor? Are they all for the same department or site ID? Enter what it is that you need based upon what you know. We will handle the approval routing rules to make sure that everything is approved properly. We will handle the creation of the purchase orders. So yes, if a requisition has multiple vendors, it will create multiple purchase orders over in your back office system. And if you do need to be able to have a common value for all lines, down at the bottom of the screen we offer a mass line change, which would allow you to come in and for any of these fields choose a value, and whatever value you choose, you can update all the lines on the requisition with that information. So if it is your common practice to have one requisition equal one PO, that's also perfectly fine as well. But again, we are offering you the flexibility to have that choice about how your requisitions are managed. Once you enter the information on the requisition, you can submit it. It'll route for approval based upon the details that have been entered on the requisition. Unlimited levels of approval, unlimited approval paths, so you can make sure that they're all fully approved before they're ever available to create a purchase order. You can approve by the total amount of the entire requisition. You can approve by the amount of the line. You can approve by item and item class, department, site ID, vendor and vendor class, priority, GL account, ship to, the person's supervisor, and more can also be used to route for approval as well. So you could route to the department manager because of the department. You could route to IT because it was computer hardware or computer software related. You could route to finance because of the amount. Again, unlimited levels of approval, unlimited approval paths, so you can make sure that all of these requisitions are fully approved before they're ever available to create the purchase orders. We are still logged in as the requester. The requester can always view the details of a requisition that will show you a status of the requisition, the approval path of the requisition, and you can see that Lisa and Bob need to approve that line. Again, there's unlimited levels of approval, so if there were more than 2 approvers, you'd see the entire approval list here. The arrow and the bold print indicate the pending approver, which is who we're waiting on to approve this before it can move on through the process. You've also got alternate approvers. Alternates can approve in the place of the original approver and keep items moving through the process if someone's out of the office or unavailable for any reason. You've got the ability to compare requisitions to budgets. You have GL budgets and other budget components that we offer as well. And if you compare requisitions to budgets, you can see the budget details. You can route for approval based upon being over budget as well, and that's an additional approval routing if you use that functionality. And you have a log, which is date, time, user, and action, everything that happens to the requisition as it flows through the process. And those details are always available to the different users to be able to see where their requisitions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them as they're flowing through the process. We'll log out as our requester. We send email notifications throughout the process. So you're going to get an email letting you know as an approver that you have requisitions pending your approval. You can see the details, the comments, and the notes that were entered. There are links in the email. If you click on the links in the email, it'll take you into Workplace and allow you to approve or disapprove those lines. You can also reply to this message. If you click on reply, then there are brackets in the email. If you put a Y into the bracket, then you're going to approve that line. If you put an N into the bracket, then you're going to disapprove that line. And you can also enter notes to the requester, and those notes will go in an email and also appear on the log. So you can actually approve and disapprove these lines on the requisition without needing to log into the Workplace application. You do still need to be a user in order to get these emails and do the approvals in that manner, but that is an option that you have on approving the items on the requisition. There's also alerts that you can establish. Alerts are based upon a number of hours, so if you still have items that are pending your approval after 24, 36, 48, whatever number of hours you determine, you'll get another email. The email looks just like this, and it's a reminder that you have items that are pending your approval. You also have the ability to approve via a mobile device, So via the browser on your mobile device, you can log in as the approver. You're going to be able to see how many items you have pending approval. You're going to be able to see the requisitions with those items and the lines that make up those requisitions, including the notes and the attachments. And you can approve or disapprove with notes, again, from the browser on your mobile device. That's another option that you have in order to be able to act on the approvals as needed. And you can always log in via your standard browser. So we'll log in as Lisa, and you can see that Lisa has a to-do list with 10 items pending her approval. Click there, you get a load screen. The load screen allows you to be selected by these values here, or if you leave those values blank and click on load, you'll load all items pending your approval. You load those items by requisition, expand the requisition that you want to work with, and there's your item information, your general tab information, the comments that have been entered, your header attachments and comments, your line attachments and comments. So as an approver, you can view all of the information that's currently a part of the requisition and use that in order to make your decision about whether or not you're going to approve or disapprove these lines on the requisition. Approvers can also have the ability to edit requisitions. You do not have to allow an approver to edit requisitions. If all you want the approver to do is to approve or disapprove, that's perfectly fine. But if you do allow them to edit, they can come into the requisition, they could change the vendor, or they could add information. That change is now a part of the requisition. There is a change log that will record that change, who made it, when they made it, what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. So you'll always have an audit trail of those changes. There's also a note to the requester. These little icons right here. Click there and enter a note and tell the requester about any changes that you made, any comments that you might have, or any instructions that you want to provide. Those will go in an email and also appear on the log for that item. When you're ready to approve, you can approve all or disapprove all at the session level, at the requisition level, or at the line level. Click on the check mark to approve. Click on the minus button to disapprove. If you disapprove, use your note to the requester and tell them why you disapproved it. So we're going to tell them to find a cheaper printer and resubmit. That note will go in an email and also appear on the log for that line. Click on process. Any items that you disapprove would now go back to the original requester. Any items that you approve would go to the next approver in line. Excuse me. Next approver in line, if there is one, and any items that are fully approved would be available for review, which is where we'll go here in just a moment, in order to create the purchase order. Last thing on approvers is alternates. Slide that button to the right. You've enabled your alternates. You're not picking who they are. You're simply enabling them so that they can approve in your place if you're out of the office or unavailable. You can also schedule your alternates with from and to dates, and they can approve during those periods of time. And if you forget to enable your alternates or you do not schedule your alternates, a system administrator can activate the alternates on your behalf. Alternates can approve in the place of the original approver and keep items moving through the process if someone's out of the office or unavailable for any reason. So we'll log out as our approver. We're going to log in as our reviewer. Now we do send out more emails. You get an email letting you know that items were disapproved, an email letting you know that items were approved, and an email letting you know that items are pending review. So there are more emails that can go out to the different users. We're going to log in as Ben, and Ben is my reviewer. You can see that we've got announcements that can be entered, and if you have those announcements that are a part of that, I have to confirm that I read the announcement before I can move on. So we'll confirm it, and then we'll now log in. Those announcements also show up here on the main home page as well. And you can say that Ben's got 41 requisitions pending review. Click there, you get a load screen. The load screen allows you to be selected by these values or ranges of those values. If you pick a requester, then it'll only load for that requester or requesters. Load items by requisition, expand the requisition that you want to work with. and there's the item information, the general tab, the comments, the attachments and the comments at the header, attachment and comment icons at the line. You have the ability to edit here as well, so you could add a vendor, you could add a GL account, you could change information, scroll through the items, make sure everything is correct. Again, any changes will be recorded in the change log, who made them, when they made them, what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. So you'll always have an audit trail of those changes. You still have your note to the requester. Click there, tell them whatever you need to tell them, such as it will be there on Monday, and that note will go on an email and also appear on the log for that item. And when you're ready, you can order all, you can order by requisition, you can order individual lines by clicking on the check mark, leave items on hold with the pause button, cancel items with the minus button. If you cancel an item, use your note to the requester, type in manually why you canceled it like we've done before, or you can also use predefined notes such as more information is required for this item. That will go in an email and also appear on the log. Click on process, and you are now going to create purchase orders from those fully approved requisitions. Once those purchase orders are created, you could go into the purchase order application, view the purchase order, print the purchase order, and send it out to the vendor. You can see what POs were created here, 24, 71, 72, and 73. You can automatically email purchase orders to the vendor when they're created. You can view or print the purchase order here as well. So you're able to go in and see an Adobe Acrobat PDF format of the PO where you can add logos, add terms and conditions, or even change the layout. And the bottom one here, 2473, that was our punch-out purchase order to Office Depot. That order is now complete because we've sent that purchase order electronically to the vendor. That will complete the transaction, and now they will send you those 5 dozen ballpoint stick pins. So that is the creation of purchase orders from fully approved requisitions. How and where you send them out to your vendors, you have several options for, but the important thing to note is that that was a requisition with a single point of entry, routed for approval before the PO is created, and the PO does not need to be rekeyed or re-entered into the purchase order system. It is created from that fully approved requisition. We'll log out as our reviewer. More emails do go out, so you get emails letting you know that the requisitions were processed to create a PO, that the requisitions were canceled. And the next step in the process is that we're going to log back in as Foy, who was our original requester, and we're going to do receiving. So I've allowed Foy to have receiving capabilities. It does not have to be the original requester that is doing the receiving. It could be whoever you allow to do the receiving. Whoever is allowed to do the receiving can come into their receiving wizard. If you know the PO number, you can enter it. If you don't know the PO number, you can search for and find it. Load that PO, and you're able to see the item, how many were ordered. If you got all 40 that were ordered, then you could leave the quantity shipped as 40, or you could do a partial receipt of 30 and leave the PO open with the remaining 10. You can enter comments here in the session. You could attach a file, so you could attach a scanned image of the packing slip if you had that, and that would be a part of this transaction. And then when you click on the checkbox here and you click on process, that will now create the receipt. So that's receiving. So all we did there was indicate the receipt of goods or the receipt of services within the workplace application. We also offer invoice matching. I'll use a different user to do invoice matching. We'll log in as Phil, and when you do invoice matching, again, there's Phil's confirmation that he knows the email system is going to be down, and he'll be allowed to log in. When you do the invoice matching, you can come in here and you can do a shipment, which is a receipt of goods like we just did, a shipment invoice, which is a receipt and match in the same step, or an invoice, which is matching to a previous receipt. So those are your different transaction types. Pick the vendor that you want to use, enter the vendor document number, and then either manually input the purchase orders or click on load. It will show you all of the purchase orders from that vendor that are available for matching. Pick the one or ones that you want to pick, load that, and then here's the PO information the quantity shipped, the quantity invoiced. Here's the general tab, the comments that have been entered previously, comments that you can enter here, comments at the header level. You've also got attachments, so you can attach a scanned image of the invoice. Click, go find that scanned image of the invoice, describe it, and attach that here. And now that's a part of the transaction. And when you're done, click on Process, and you will now create the completed invoice matching transaction over in your back office system. Now, there are approval processes that are available with the receiving and invoice matching, so you could have approvals occur based upon the information that's been entered and any variances in that information. So those are also available throughout that process. And finally, we'll get back to our requester here. We're going to log in as Foy. And we're going to come back in here to Requisition, find Requisition. And this query, as I mentioned earlier, has a lot of information about what's been entered. You can see a status for each of the lines. You can see item information, vendor information. You can find and search through all of that criteria. You can export the query out to Excel in a CSV format and manipulate it further. And you can drill down on any of the requisitions, and you can view the details, and the details will show you a status of the requisition, purchasing information of that requisition, budget details, and then your log at the bottom. This log is every step that has happened to the requisition as it flowed through the process. You can see submitted, changes that were made, approved with notes, processed with notes to create a PO, receiving, and invoice matching. So again, there's your audit trail of everything that has happened to this as it flowed through the process. So you're always able to see where your requisitions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them as they're going through the different steps. And that is requisitioning all the way through the creation of a PO, receiving and invoice matching, approval processes throughout are available, email notifications throughout are available to keep your users up to date about what's going on with their requisitions as they're going through the process. Single point of data entry over the web, no duplicate entry or rekeying of information required. And that is the presentation for today. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Fraser. And if there are any questions, I will be glad to answer those in the time that we have left.